signs that you found a guy who's different than the rest. What does that mean? Thanks so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, I'm welcoming back Robert Manny, the author of The Guy's Guide to Love, got it sitting right here, and the host of Guy's Guy Radio and TV right here on YouTube. Thanks for being here again, Robert.
Thanks for having me, Silka. Love being here.
Well, love having you here. You always give us great insight on what women need to know from the man's perspective. And that's what, of course, we're going to focus on again today. There was an interesting article that I want your opinion on. Signs that you found a guy who's different than the rest. What does that mean? What does that, how is a guy different? First, I mean, do you hear that, right?
It's not a one size fits all world,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to love. So there's a lot of good guys out there, and there's a lot of not so good guys out there. So we have to have a good qualification and filter system to identify, is this guy a good guy? Is he right for me? I always like to say it should be value based, but we'll get into it.
Really, the title of the article kind of implies that all men are saying, that this is something, let's look for the differences. So I don't know, it intrigued me. So let's see what they say here. So number one here is he's direct about his intentions from the beginning. How do you know if a guy, what is the differential between somebody who is direct in his intentions or not?
So I think the point here is like, you want a guy that's not duplicitous, that doesn't say one thing and means another, or doesn't follow through with his word. And he's clear about what he wants and he follows through with it. I think that's really the point this gentleman is making. And I would agree with that. That's an important differentiator, that he's not BSing you. So I think that's a fair point. But coming in and like, this is my intentions. I think you got to get to know somebody before you determine. You might have an intention as like, I want to date, I want to have a girlfriend, I want to get married, whatever it is. You don't have to state that right from the front, but you have to know personally, if you're a guy, what your intentions are. And then you don't want to kind of misuse somebody's feelings and manipulate them to get what you want.
It's like stating here, a guy who has good intentions, or however he frames it, is like what you were saying, state up front what you're looking for and mean it. Yeah.
It's a big question early on.
Right, exactly. And how do I as a woman know that he's, I mean, I don't know. It's in a way, it's a little bit, I don't know. It's almost like something that you really can't determine up front.
Yeah. It's like, it's personal. It's like up front. It's like, what do you want? I'm like, I'll have the Chablis. That's as far. You don't have to get into that. This is what I want when you're saying after hello, would you care to have a seat? It doesn't have to go. Let's take things. Let's a little bit romance. Let's learn a little bit about who we are. Let's have some fun. Let's have a conversation, and then we can get into the point here is, Silka, I think people need to know what they want going into it, and then stick with that. You don't want to BS somebody and tell them, I want a girlfriend, but you want to date 10 women.
Right.
That's where, the road divides, and you have to, so if you want to date other people right at the beginning, if somebody says, why are you on, Match or whatever it is, you can say, because I want to, I'm coming off a relationship. I want to date different people, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. That's fair. Then at least the other person knows where you're coming from.
Yeah, that would actually, according to the way I'm interpreting this, would be a good thing, because that's somebody who's being honest. And even if he tells you something that might hurt you, or it's not what you want to hear, he's not telling you just what you want to hear, he's telling you the truth. The second point here, he doesn't try to sell himself to you. That's how you would know you found a guy that's different from the rest. He's not just talk, trying to tell you how great he is. He shows you, or he actually listens to you. I know you harp on this a lot.
Well, I think it's incredibly important to be a good active listener and really listen, but also selling themselves. This is the two-edged sword here, where a lot of times when it comes to first meetings on a date, where a lot of times from my personal experience only here,
Mm-hmm.
I get asked a lot of questions, and
Right.
I don't want to do all the talking. But when
Mm-hmm.
I see this is a job interview here, and I understand to a certain point, but you don't want it to come across that way. There's a way
Right.
of gently
Mm-hmm.
extracting the information. So you're in a position where you are selling yourself because
Mm-hmm.
you've been put into that position to play that role. I've
Right.
also had in that type of situation where I tried to turn it around and ask some questions and notice the other person doesn't really want to do ask the answer the
Mm-hmm.
questions that they're asking me in the
Mm-hmm.
same way. They want it to be all about I'm checking you out. I'm deciding, I'm judging you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not a good thing either. I think
No.
we need to have conversations. And that's
Yeah.
conversations are how we feel about each other, how we get to know each other, how we can have some fun, exchange some information, and see if it works. Because
Yeah.
bottom line is, if you don't feel good hanging out with the other person, it's not going to work anyhow.
Right. No, that's a great point. That, and I think women do tend to do that more than men. I think, based on what I'm hearing on this channel, is that, yeah, that interview, that. And so, since we're talking to women, giving advice, you are to women today. Yeah, don't do that. Have that conversation, and invite, as Robert, as you just said, a response. Don't just make the guy talk. Now, if you won't shut up, that's another thing, and that's a turn off. And I think maybe that's what he's pointing out here, because if a man doesn't shut up about himself, then he will never focus in on you.
Yeah. And a lot of times guys fall into that because they
Mm-hmm.
figure, okay, how much money do I have? What kind of car do I drive? Some of
Yeah.
the things that both sides complain about. So they figure look at what I've got, especially if a guy's got some
Yeah.
money and he's got, good house and good car and can play, he wants to put it out there like he is selling. I mean, everybody's selling to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want it to come across that you're selling. There's a way to
Yeah.
sell yourself that doesn't come across as salesy.
Right. Right. It's like
It's
the point they
emotional.
make. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
people buy on emotion. They don't buy
Yeah.
on information.
Yeah, there's a good point he makes here, is that, wealthy people don't tell you they're wealthy, or,
Right.
cool people don't tell you they're cool.
Right.
And if
It's
you
true.
think about it that way, yeah, that you have to sort of demonstrate it. You just don't come out and, tell
Hmm.
everybody how great you are. That's actually a really huge turn off. Next one here. He pays attention to the little details. Now, that would definitely make a man different. And I'm being a little bit facetious here, but yeah, I mean, we think that men don't take or pay attention to a lot of the details. I know I accuse Paul of that all the time, because he could remember any sports stat there is, but does he remember the day we met? I mean, it really is very selective. How so? If he pays attention to the little details, what does that mean? How do you pay attention, Robert?
I think it means women are great at paying attention. They always can tell if, like, what's his mood, like, is something bothering you or whatever. And a lot of times guys are paying attention to themselves
Mm-hmm.
to a fault. And I've
Mm-hmm.
fallen into the same thing. And when I've told the story before, I have to tell it one more time. When I went out my third date with my wife, she said to me, I said to her, I'm having a great time. How can I be a good boyfriend? And she put her fork down. She looked at me and she said, pay attention. I
Attention.
said, is that it? And she said, that's it. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought about it and I'm like, that actually makes sense. And it's about paying attention to the little things, the details that
Right.
you might just, if you're all focused on yourself, you're not going to see, is she having a good day? Can I help her with something? What's going
Mm-hmm.
on? And it
Yeah.
becomes actually much better for the relationship if the guys can take that extra step to learn how to listen and pay attention better.
Yeah. And it's not just about sitting there nodding your head, listening,
Exactly.
but engaging,
Hmm.
following up on questions and hopefully it's not just, putting on a show. Hopefully you really are interested in the engagement and what she has to say. So,
Right.
but if you're a woman and the guy's doing that and he makes you feel good and engaged, you got somebody that might be different. Here's another good one. He talks about the future with you. I think how this really applies to us is, does he, when you talk about where this relationship is going or where you'd like to go, is retirement part of that conversation. Like, and this is past the first date. This is as you're getting to know each other. But if you're hearing that you might be part of that retirement, I think that's huge. I think that that's definitely something to pay attention to if you're obviously if you want to go down relationship road with this man.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, you want to have discussions that if somebody's saying, I'm going to do this and just keep ignoring you as part of the conversation,
Yeah.
that's a signal that you're temporary. But if they can include you
Yes.
in the conversation as to maybe this is something we could do, wouldn't you love to go to Thailand or something like that? I mean,
Yeah.
that means, oh, me? Yeah, yeah,
Right.
you. It's like
Right.
not like I'm going to go to I can't. I'm going to go to Thailand someday.
Yeah.
That's different. So I think
Exactly.
listening the right way to that, and seeing if you're included in a gentle way in the conversation, that's a great thing. And if you really then if you're in a relationship and you really want to know, say what's going on. How do you are you interested in what do you feel? How do you feel about this relationship? I mean, just put it
Right.
out there. If
Right.
you're over 50, I mean, what are you waiting for? Just put it out there.
Right. Yeah, great point. And there's so many cues or so in how you talk about the future that
Right.
well, sometimes we just need to pick up on him even
Right.
if we don't want to, because there's might be a lot that's being said there that you don't
You
want to
know,
hear as
you know,
well. So,
and if he says, "Do you want to be cremated?" Then you know he's a keep.
oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, here he can communicate with depth. That makes a man different. Can men usually not communicate with depth? I don't know. Men largely have it says here, men largely have a reputation for being poor communicators or just not communicate at all. Unfortunately, this reputation is often warranted.
That's a bit judgmental, I
I
think.
think so too.
Every guy is different, and there's a lot of very articulate men out there, and you have to challenge them. If it's up, a conversation is a two-way street. So if you engage somebody, you can engage a guy, and maybe they have their world that they're focused on, whether it's the New York Jets and their job, and
Yeah.
their trip to the Jersey Shore, whatever it is.
Mhm.
That's okay. But you should be able to draw out what is in the depth of them, and that's a skill. And I would put that responsibility and challenge on the woman to do that. If you want to get into an in-depth conversation with a guy, see if you can do it. Now, if it's impossible and he doesn't have anything to say and doesn't want to go anywhere beyond the surface things, then that should tell you something also.
Yeah, you know what it tells me? To me, that it's a point of rejection, really, because I mean, to say that most men have this, reputation of not being able to go deep. You're right. I mean, that's almost insulting, and it's not true. They absolutely do. Do they want to get into a deep
Exactly. Right.
conversation with you? Is where the difference is. So if you have someone where you really enjoy talking about deep
Mm-hmm.
conversations where he wants you to hear what he thinks, and vice
Right.
versa, that's that
Agreed.
there might be a different growth to the relationship. Here's one question I have for you, and what that even means. He puts in consistent effort. That to be present for a serious relationship, anyone can make big romantic gestures, but the true measure of how serious they are is how consistent their actions are over time. Again, over time. What comes to mind when you're, putting in effort and consistency? What are examples of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's so, the flip side. Let's talk about that first. Would be somebody plans a big vacation and then ignores you for the next 6 months. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
not. You'd rather have somebody who's steady, who does
Yeah.
pay attention, who does ask
Mm-hmm.
open-end questions, who is interested, is proactive, and thinks ahead. That's a good thing. I know some people like bad boys or whatever, but you're not going to get that from bad boys. If you want that, you can have that. There's plenty of them out there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
women over 50 are looking for a man, a man in the true sense of the word. And a man can be sensitive, a man can be loving, a man can be giving, and a man can be deep in conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
it's up to you. It's a two-way
Right.
street. You have to engage.
Well, and they say here you have to be brutally honest with yourself to know whether or not he's putting in the effort, or how do you feel after 1 month, after three, after six? What if you're starting to have doubts, and you have to be honest
Hmm.
with yourself that this may not be going.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a little bit of confusion there. It's obvious, yet it's not. So I don't know. I thought I'd throw it out there for you. Finally, he doesn't push for sex early on and respects your boundaries. So that means that he's different.
No, I think it's a great point. I think it's a fantastic point. I think it's a
Yeah.
really good trait because, listen, I've been asked a number of times, and I've asked many other guests about, is sex on the first date okay? And usually I
Yeah.
get a no. To me, if it's on the first date, it could be great, and it could lead
Hmm.
to some challenges though, because there's a lot on the table when you are engaging in something as intimate as that.
Hmm.
Could it be on the third date? Fine. It has to be when two people are comfortable. If you're a
Hmm.
guy, why do you want to like force somebody into something they're not ready yet? I have found that if you just give a woman a chance to be
Hmm.
comfortable with you, then it's
Hmm.
going to happen. They'll let you know.
Yeah.
You won't even have to try. They
Yeah.
will give you little nudges here and there,
Yeah.
and some of them are physical, like, is something wrong with me or whatever. So you have
Yeah.
to, at a certain point, if you're interested, if it's the 10th date and you haven't done anything, well, I guess you're not interested, and that's
Yeah.
cool if that's who you are. But I think it's a really good trait for a guy not to rush a woman into sex, because the woman's going to think, when is he going to make the move? Is he going to be all over me? And you don't want to have that pressure. And if you
Hmm.
let the relationship blossom on its own, it'll happen in a really good way, and it'll be
Hmm.
well worth it. If it's not the second date or it's not the third date, it becomes the fourth date. So what?
Well, I think the implication really is, about waiting for sex, that means that he wants to spend time with you. It's not just sex. So in this day and age, I don't know. I guess that is true. It's probably better to wait. I think that's the consensus. It's better.
The main takeaway is it'll happen when the woman's
Mhm.
ready.
Yeah.
Just let it happen. Just let it
Yeah.
happen. And maybe sometimes the woman's going to be more aggressive than the guy. Nowadays, sure. But I
Yes.
think it needs to be comfortable for both
For
people.
both.
So, hey, just be cool about it.
And respect the
Exactly.
boundaries, and if you
Exactly.
do,
Exactly.
then maybe you have somebody. I don't know. I would like to think everybody respects boundaries, but I guess not, because that would, because all men are the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, Robert, anything else you want to say on this before we close out?
I think this terrific segment, and it's a lot to take away. And the main thing is what you just said is respect each other. In the dating process, particularly over 50, you don't want to waste time. You don't want to be duplicitous. You don't want to be selling yourself. You just
Right.
want to be authentic and genuine, and let the other person determine, do I feel good about this person? Do I want this person in my life? Do I have fun
Mhm.
with this person? Is this somebody I want to hang out with and do things with?
Right.
That's the most important thing when we're, anytime, but particularly when we're over 50, we don't want to waste time.
No, I agree. And I guess the only other thing I want to add is just the whole title of the article is that, you have somebody different. I would love to get away from all men are the same, all women are the same, everything's the same, and really open yourself up to what you have in front of you. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
Robert, thank you again for being here today. I will link to all of your information to your podcast, UK Health Radio, to your YouTube channel, Guys Guide TV, right here on YouTube. Check the link in the notes. And I look forward to our next conversation on Second Act TV.
Thank you, Silka. Thank you, everybody.